All right, so I think this is recording. This is my first video with the Canon EOS M50, and I'm shooting this video actually in 4K. So I apologize ahead of time if you guys see me looking over to the screen, because I am pretty excited about the screen pull out. But nonetheless, I wanted to make this video to just talk a little bit about why I returned the Sony RX100 Mark VI. I actually exchanged it. I returned whatever you want to use, took back the RX100 Mark VI, and got the Canon EOS M50. And for me, it comes down to just a few basic fundamentals and just kind of where I'm at in my content creation. So a lot of what I'll say won't necessarily apply to every single one of you guys out there, girls out there looking for the RX100 Mark VI, or maybe not even for the people who are watching this video for the 4K on the Canon EOS M50. Basically, if you guys seen my previous reviews, I talked about some things that I like, some things that I dislike. Now, the camera is a fantastic little camera. What it does well. However, from an average user, from someone who is making content on a semi-regular basis for YouTube, someone who doesn't have that kind of channel that requires all the bells and whistles, someone who doesn't vlog all the time, the RX100 Mark VI just wasn't for me. That's from a video standpoint. From a camera standpoint, from a photography standpoint, I think that the RX100 Mark VI wasn't for me because it doesn't allow me to learn the nuances, and it doesn't allow me to get really into the intricacies of shooting photos. For example, with a camera like the one I'm using right now, a mirrorless camera or a DSLR, you have interchangeable lenses. So you're more likely to trial and error. You're more likely to want to go out and buy another lens for this scenario or for that scenario. I can't do that with the RX100 Mark VI. And I knew that ahead of time, obviously. But what I'm saying is, for someone who already owned other cameras, I was looking for something that would be like my do-all per se. And it did a lot of things, but it wasn't doing all of them, and it wasn't doing all of them equally great. For example, the reach, the 200mm reach is fantastic. However, the focus once you're pushed out to 200mm wasn't quite there. If you're not using that on a tripod, if you're not using some sort of handheld gimbal, something like that, at 200mm, you're really going to struggle with autofocus and being able to keep that subject in the frame. So 200mm is cool, but there, if you can't get it in the frame, then that's a big issue. Another thing is, I didn't find myself using 200mm as much as I thought I would. I think that experiencing that, I'm more likely then to just buy a good 200mm lens in the future and apply it to either the Canon EOS M50 or my Sony A7 III and call it a day. So when I want to do that kind of photography or that kind of videography, but most likely it's going to be photography, then I have a dedicated lens that's capable of producing the kind of footage and image quality that I'm looking for. So I know that there's someone out there that's listening to this video is like, man, look, 200mm in your pocket is dope. When it is dope. But for me, it wasn't something that I was going to use often. And I realized that I was paying an extra $300 premium really for that. I really don't consider the new autofocus that Sony brought into the Mark VI to be that much better. It's obviously better. It's not that much better than what the focus is on the RX100 Mark V. So you're looking at really those two little things, longer reach and a quicker, snappier autofocus, and you're going to pay about $300 more. And you could probably get the RX100 Mark V or even Mark IV for substantially cheaper if you're willing to buy it used. So sitting there thinking about those things that Sony brought into the RX100 Mark VI and thinking about how I walked out of Best Buy after using gift cards, still spending almost $1,100. It was just so hard because for $1,100, you can get yourself something close to like the A6500. For $1,100, you can get the Canon EOS M50 that I'm using now and have money left over to buy yourself an iPad or lenses or other kind of tech stuff or whatever it is that you're into. For $1,100, you're able to go beyond just beginner content creation and start introducing things that other people that are more established and have more techniques developed are using. For $1,100, you've got a good chunk of money towards an A7 III that I've purchased and use here and there. So it's just that the back of my mind kept saying, you're using a camera that, or you want to use a camera that's not going to do everything as comfortably for you, and you're going to spend way more than what you should to still have compromises. So in that case, and with that kind of thought process, I went back to the Canon EOS M50 and decided, you know what, I'm finally going to give it a shot. We all know that the RX100 Mark VI doesn't have a microphone input, so you're not going to slap on any Rode or anything like that. We all know that the that the RX100 Mark VI, the screen pops up, which is great. But we also know that the RX100 Mark VI has a 5-minute 4K limit. So if you want to see 4K in the RX100 Mark VI from like this kind of setup, talking head setup, then go ahead and watch the video that I talked about things that I do like about the camera, and you'll see how that 4K is just, it's beautiful. However, it's only 5 minutes long, and that's frustrating because the times that I want to do 4K, like I'm doing right now, this video is already going on 7 minutes long. Of course, I'm going to edit it. However, the camera doesn't care whether you're going to edit or not. So if you accidentally talk a little longer, shoot a little more footage and B-roll, and it's already past 5 minutes, it's going to stop. So you're going to have a bunch of 5-minute clips. That's obnoxious to me. I'm not quite sure why they're not capable of making the camera a little thicker. They made it a tad bit thicker to incorporate the 200 millimeter range, but why not make it even a little thicker and include something that's going to go past 5 minutes of 4K? It's almost like for them, they plan on using that 5-minute 4K as a teaser for their next level of cameras. I guess their Alpha Series A6500, 6300, so forth. And that just really bothered me. That really bothered me because I didn't want to feel like rushing. And I didn't want to have to sit there and think about what kind of content am I going to shoot that's going to require 5 minutes or less of 4K footage. If I want to shoot 4K, I want to shoot 4K. So basically, those were my reasons: the price, the 4K limitation, the usage of the 200 millimeter range, and I mentioned it in one of the things I disliked in that video. The body is so small that for most is a pro, but I think there's a lot of people out there that if they get a hand on the RX100 Mark VI, or maybe they've experienced it with the Mark V, you're really going to realize how slippery that camera is. Numerous times it almost slipped out of my hand and hit the ground, and I can't imagine what I would feel like if I knew I damaged a $1,200 camera. There's no grip to it. It's tiny. So I think, in my opinion, and if you have big hands or whatever, and I don't even feel like I have big hands, I just feel like it's just too slippery. It's almost like its portability and its compact size is too small to make it comfortable to use. The electric viewfinder is so small that I'm sure if you're watching this video, you guys are familiar with Jared Polin. He had his review on the RX100 Mark VI, and he talked about how his head hurt. Like, he actually felt like his vision was strained a bit from using that electric viewfinder because it's so small and so tiny that you're going to have a headache most likely, and you're going to strain one of your eyes. So that is all true. I never found myself using electric viewfinder. I tried to, and then I said, you know what, that's just too tiny. That's pretty much it, guys. I know I've kind of rambled on a little bit, but I just wanted to share with you my conclusions and findings with the Sony RX100 Mark VI. It's a great little camera that fits a specific niche. I don't think it can be an average consumer's go-to everything camera. I think something more like the Canon EOS M50 And I'll discuss that in another video. And there's a couple other cameras out there, might be someone's better go-to camera for average users, for average content creators. So there's that. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. Hit that subscribe button if you want to watch more of these videos and help my channel out. My subscriptions are always free, so you don't have to worry about paying anything per month. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Like always, it was Nando. Stay geeky. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace, salute, and adios.